What if I told you that the hardest part of becoming wealthy isn't actually the money, it's the waiting? Everyone loves to say the first million is the hardest. But here's the real secret. It's not hard because of math. It's hard because of psychology. Let's break it down. When you're just starting out, wealth feels like a faraway dream. You're juggling bills, loans, kids, and trying to stash away a few $100 a month, if that. The idea of having $1 million feels like climbing Mount Everest barefoot. And it's not your fault. The early stage of wealth building is brutally slow because you're doing everything for the first time. You're figuring out how to budget, how to invest, how to resist lifestyle creep, all while life keeps throwing surprises at you. At that point, you're not just building wealth, you're building discipline. You're learning how to manage your emotions, how to stay consistent when progress is invisible, and how to keep going when you feel like quitting. It's not glamorous, it's not fun, it's a grind. Now let's put some numbers to it. Say you earn $75,000 a year and save 20%. That's $15,000 annually. If you invest that in something steady like the S&P 500, which historically averages around 10% a year, according to long-term data from Standard & Poor's, it might take over 20 years to reach $1 million. 2 whole decades. That's enough time to raise a kid, change careers, and start wondering if you're doing something wrong. But here's where it gets interesting. Even though it feels slow, you're quietly laying down the foundation for explosive growth later. You're not just collecting dollars, you're collecting habits. That $1 million goal isn't about being rich. It's about becoming the kind of person who can be rich. Because once you've built that base, something magical happens. Compounding starts to kick in. And if you don't know what that means, here's the simple version. Compounding is money making more money without you doing anything. In the beginning, your portfolio is tiny, so even a 10% gain only adds a few $1,000s. You still do most of the work through your savings. But once you cross that $1 million mark, everything flips. A 10% return on $1 million is $100,000. That's the equivalent of an extra 6-figure salary. No meetings, no overtime, no alarm clock. Your money just worked for you while you slept. That's when people start to see the difference between linear growth and exponential growth. For 20 years, your portfolio crawled uphill. Then suddenly, it starts to sprint. But that first stretch, that's where most people give up. They see the slow growth, get impatient, and bail out before the compounding magic even begins. Think of it like starting a campfire. In the beginning, you're huddled over, blowing on little sparks, adding twigs, getting smoke in your eyes, wondering if it'll ever catch. That's your first million, awkward, messy, and full of setbacks. But once it catches flame, every log you throw on fuels a roaring fire. That's the second million, and it grows almost effortlessly. Still, there's another reason the first million takes so long: mistakes. When you're new to the game, you make a ton of them. You buy high, sell low. You spend on stuff you don't need. You forget to invest regularly. You let fear and FOMO, fear of missing out, make your decisions for you. You're not stupid, you're just inexperienced. And it's okay. Every mistake you make in the first million is tuition. Expensive, but necessary. Only a few people have mentors or family who guide them early. The rest, they figure it out the hard way. That's why most self-made millionaires don't get there until their late 40s or 50s. It's not because they didn't try earlier, it's because they had to learn the rules first. Now here's where it gets really exciting. Once you hit that $1 million milestone, you're not learning anymore. You're applying. You've made your mistakes, you've built your habits, you've learned what not to do. So everything starts moving faster. Let's take a real example. A couple with a combined income of $150,000 takes 17 years to hit their first million. But after that, it takes just 6 years to hit 2 million. Then only 4 years to reach 3. Nothing magical happened to the market. They just reached the tipping point where compounding does most of the work. That's what people mean when they say wealth builds momentum. At first, your progress is driven by effort. your savings, your hustle, your discipline. But once you've built enough capital, progress is driven by math. The snowball you've been pushing uphill finally starts rolling downhill, and every turn makes it bigger. A 2023 analysis by Fidelity found that among retirement accounts that reached $1 million, nearly 70% doubled within the next 7 years, even with moderate contributions. Why? Because once your investment base is big enough, even average returns translate to serious money. That's why the second million always comes faster. And here's the irony. By the time people finally reach that first million, many stop investing aggressively. They relax, take a breath, and start enjoying life, which they've earned, no doubt. But the ones who stay consistent just a little longer get to witness what exponential growth feels like. It's almost surreal watching your net worth jump by hundreds of thousands a year without changing your lifestyle. The problem is, most people never get to that stage because they quit too early. They stop right before compounding starts doing the heavy lifting. It's like leaving a movie 15 minutes before the best scene. You've probably heard of the rule of 72. It's a simple way to estimate how long it takes your money to double. Just divide 72 by your annual return. If your investments grow at 10% a year, your money doubles roughly every 7 years. That means once you've got $1 million, you're only 7 years away from $2 million, even if you never save another dime. Think about that. You could be closer to your second million than you ever imagined. But remember, numbers alone don't tell the whole story. There's a mental shift that happens after your first big milestone. You become calmer, more confident. You stop freaking out every time the market dips 5%. You stop chasing quick wins. You realize patience is a strategy, not a weakness. And because of that mindset, you make fewer emotional decisions, the kind that destroy wealth before it has a chance to grow. You also gain something even more powerful: options. With that cushion behind you, you can finally walk away from a bad job, negotiate from strength, or take a risk on a business idea you actually care about. You don't need to settle anymore. And ironically, that freedom often leads to even more money because you start making choices from clarity, not desperation. The second million is not just about faster growth. It's about a calmer, smarter version of you steering the ship. And that's where the real wealth begins. Let's start with a question. Why does the second million come so much faster than the first? Most people think it's because you're earning more or investing smarter. Nope. It's because the engine you built during the first phase is finally running at full speed. In the beginning, your savings drive your growth. Later, your wealth itself becomes the driver. Think of it like pushing a car. At first, it barely moves. You're sweating, struggling, questioning your life choices. But once it starts rolling, momentum takes over. Eventually, you're just steering. That's compounding in action. Let's put some numbers on it. Say you've hit your first million at 48. If your portfolio grows at 10% annually, that's $100,000 in a single year without lifting a finger. You could literally take a year off work and your money would still give you a 6-figure raise. Add in your regular contributions, maybe $20,000 or $30,000, and suddenly you're gaining $130,000 plus per year. At that pace, you'd hit $2 million in about 7 years. Same market, same discipline, but way faster progress. Now imagine the same math at $2 million. A 10% return becomes $200,000 a year. The next million doesn't take 7 years. It might take 3 or 4. That's the power of acceleration. Wealth doesn't grow in a straight line. It curves upward. Slow, 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 and then suddenly fast. But there's another hidden reason this acceleration feels so satisfying. Your mindset transforms. You stop playing defense. You stop obsessing over every grocery bill and start focusing on strategy. You trust the process. That confidence makes a massive difference because when you're calm, you make better financial decisions. Let's be honest, when you're broke or just starting out, Every dollar feels like a life or death decision. You hesitate, overthink, and sometimes miss opportunities. But once you've built a cushion, your brain starts operating from abundance, not scarcity. And that shift? That's what keeps the snowball rolling. A recent Vanguard report found that investors who stayed consistently invested through down markets ended up with 40% more wealth after 25 years than those who tried to time the market. Why? Because fear breaks compounding. Every time you pull out, you interrupt the magic. Once you've hit that first million, you've already learned this lesson the hard way. You've seen bad markets, scary headlines, and probably a few sleepless nights. But you stayed in, and now you trust that time works in your favor. That calm consistency is your superpower. And it doesn't stop at 2 million. Let's take a real-world story. A couple hits $1 million after 18 years of disciplined saving and investing. Nothing fancy, just index funds, automatic contributions, and a bit of patience. 5 years later, they're at $2 million. 2 years after that, $3 million. Did they suddenly triple their income? Nope. They simply let compounding do what it's always done. It just finally had enough fuel to ignite. Here's where the math gets fun. At $3 million, a 10% return equals $300,000 a year. That's not a rounding error. That's a full-blown salary for an executive. And it's your money doing the job. You're the boss now. Of course, markets aren't always kind. There will be years of decline, even brutal ones. But the point isn't to win every battle. It's to stay in the war long enough for time to win it for you. If you zoom out over 20, 30, or 40 years, history has shown the S&P 500 consistently averages around 9–10% returns, according to data from Ibbotson and Morningstar. The key isn't timing, it's time itself. But let's talk about the part no one warns you about, the emotional whiplash. When your portfolio is small, losing 10% is annoying. When you're sitting on $2 million, a 10% drop means watching $200,000 vanish in a month. It's gut-wrenching, until you realize it's temporary. Markets breathe in and out, and those who can emotionally survive the down cycles are the ones who end up far ahead. That's why patience is the most underrated wealth strategy on the planet. You can't control the market, but you can control your behavior. Now, if you're still working toward that first million, you might be thinking, yeah, easy for you to say. And that's fair. But here's the truth. The habits you build right now are the same ones millionaires use later. Saving consistently, staying invested, ignoring noise, and living below your means, those are the real accelerators. The dollar amount changes, but the mindset doesn't. And remember, you don't need to earn a massive salary to make this work. A couple making a combined $120,000 and saving 20% could easily hit $1 million in their early 50s and hit $2 million by their early 60s. In fact, according to the Federal Reserve's survey of consumer finances, more than half of US millionaires are regular middle-class professionals, teachers, engineers, managers, not tech billionaires or hedge fund geniuses. They just stayed the course. The trick is not to get bored once things start working. That's when most people slip up. They hit $800,000, get excited, buy a bigger house, a fancier car, and suddenly the snowball melts. The ones who keep their expenses stable through that phase are the ones who watch their wealth explode later. So what can you do right now, today, to move faster toward that curve where wealth starts accelerating? First, automate everything. Savings, investments, contributions, make them happen without emotion. Because if you have to think about it every month, you'll find excuses. Second, avoid lifestyle creep. Your income will grow. Make sure your spending doesn't grow with it. Third, keep your investments boring. Boring works. Index funds, diversified ETFs, low fees. You're not trying to beat the market. You're trying to stay in it long enough to let it work for you. And finally, remember this. Wealth is built quietly. The first million feels like forever, but it's really just training. It's where you build your financial stamina. The second million, that's the sprint. That's where the curve bends upward and your effort starts to look effortless. You might be years away from that point, or maybe just inches. Either way, stay in the game, because the second million isn't just closer than you think. It's waiting for you to believe long enough to see it happen.